deploy a model in the new Foundry portal, the first thing you'll need to do is ensure that you are in fact in the new Foundry portal. To make sure that you're here, this toggle at the top will show New Foundry and it'll be set to the far right. If it is set to the left, it'll take you to the classic Foundry portal. So ensure that you are in the new Foundry experience, in which it'll look like what you see here on your screen. And the welcome screen will say welcome, and it'll include your endpoint, your API key, and your region. To navigate to the model catalog, you'll select Discover at the top menu. And once you're in the Discover tab, you're going to select Models on the far left, and that'll bring you to the model catalog itself. If you would like more space to see the models, you can select the icon at the bottom that has this left arrow, and that'll bring the model catalog over some. Now we can see all the models that are currently available within the Microsoft Foundry portal. And we have quite a lot that happens to be available. You can search for models directly by name. You can either sort them by what's featured, what's the newest, as well as what's been recently updated. We also have different categories on the left for either ones that are part of one of two collections, so direct from Azure or Foundry Labs. You can also filter by capabilities as well, so options such as reasoning or tool calling. There's also the source that you can filter by as well. So if you're looking specifically, for example, for Anthropic models, you can select that. If you're looking for Hugging Face models, you can check next to Hugging Face. We also have inference tasks as well that you can filter by. So options include chat completion or even audio generation. And then just below that, we have the fine-tuning methods as our last way to filter models. And those options are going to include direct preference optimization, reinforcement, and supervised. So when you select one of the models, what it'll do is take you to the model card for the model itself. Every model card is going to differ in terms of what content is available, as it is based on the provider for the model itself. Right now, we're looking at GPT 5.1's model card. And within here, we can learn more information about the model and its key capabilities. And just below, we have more information with respect to pricing, any technical specs, any training disclosure, distribution, and then additional information that's been provided. And then on the far right, we have some quick facts. So with respect to the quick facts, we can see who the model provider is, the type, the life cycle. So for example, this one is generally available. We have input types, output types. We can also see the context that's available. So in this case, we have 100K output. And then again, we have a link to the pricing as well. In addition, we also provide information on what other models or tools people who have used this model have also used as well. So in this case, for people who have deployed the GPT 5.1 model, they've also used Model Router, which is one of our Foundry tools, for example. They've also used O4 Mini. You can also see if you have any deployments as well for your project with this respective model. So right now in this project, I personally do not have anything deployed in the current resource, but there are other resources within the current subscription that I am using. I can also take a look at benchmarks for this model as well, if that information is available. In this case, it's not available, but if it were, that would display here. We also have some information with respect to responsible AI considerations, and then also if there's any licensing information available here as well. In addition to the model card, you can also view what is called the leaderboard. And the leaderboard itself is going to compare models across the quality index, safety, the throughput, and then the estimated cost as well. We do have models that have been selected here for you to view and compare. However, if there are specific models that you'd like to compare, if you scroll down just below the charts that are at the top, you can select your own models. And so, for example, I can choose Claude Sonnet 4.5. I can also choose GPT-5 Mini. And then I can select Compare Models. In selecting Compare Models, I'm now taken into a different view where I can compare multiple models at once, even though I've selected two. You can choose more than two. And then just below there, I can look at the benchmarks for the models to compare which of the two may be better, as well as the additional information about the model as well. What we're going to do is deploy a model. And today we're going to deploy GPT 4.1 mini. So I'm going to search for that in the search bar with GPT-4.1-mini. And it does show here at the top as the first option. So in selecting that, I am taken to the model card for GPT 4.1 mini. At the top right, I have the option to either deploy the model or I can fine tune this model. I would like to deploy this model. So in selecting deploy, and I have two options, either use the default settings or custom settings. The default settings is going to use global standard as well as a default amount of quota. And then the custom settings will enable you to set your own SKU, quota, PTU, spillover, as well as guardrails. In selecting default settings, it'll kick off the deployment process for you. It's very short. And once you're in here, it'll bring you to the playground where you can actually chat with the model itself. If you navigate back using the back arrow, it'll bring you to the models area of the build section. So again, we're now in build and within models. And this is where you can see all the models that have been deployed for your particular project. If you select the model itself, this will bring you back to that playground tab. And then from here, to learn more about your models, you can select details. This is also where you can come and edit information about your model. You can also delete your model here as well, and you can also request quota. Within here, you can also find the target URI and then the key if any of that happens to be necessary. You can also monitor the usage and performance, if you will, of your model as well. And so within here, I can see how many requests have been used, the token count, the estimated cost, the input tokens, and the output tokens. And then I can also view cost within a timeline and just additional information that will become available once you start using the model. And then if you've done any evaluations as well for the model, that will be available here. To start chatting with the model, you'll go back to the playground tab itself. You can provide instructions for your model. So right here by default, the instructions that are provided are, you are an AI assistant that helps people find information. And then if you continue to scroll down, you can add Foundry tools as well to your model. And you can also give your model knowledge if you want to ground your model with any information that'll help with its output. And then you can also add memory so that way your model will retain context over time. And then finally, we have guardrails at the very bottom. On the right hand side is where I can actually submit my prompts. So if I were to say, write me a poem about flowers, I can submit that by clicking the arrow here. Alternatively, there is an attach files icon if I am using a model that can accept files as input, such as photos or text, for example. And then I can submit this prompt though, and then let's see what the output is here. So now we do have a beautiful poem from GPT 4.1 mini. Just below that, to give you an idea of what's been output, we know the model that was used, which is GPT 4.1 mini. We have how long it took to generate this output, and in this case, it took 2.4 seconds. We can also see here the response tokens. So for the input, we had 28 tokens, and then for the output, we have 141 tokens. We can copy what we have here from the output for the model, and then we can also delete what we have here as well. In the event you want to start a new conversation, you'll select the plus icon to top right that says new chat, and then it'll clear the chat window for you. In the event you want to compare models at this state, what you would need to do is select this compare model section, and then you can look at anything that's currently been deployed and then anything else that happens to be considered popular, or you can also just browse more models. So from here, if I wanted to compare against 4.0, it's going to deploy that model for me as well here. And now I have a new experience where I have two chat windows, if you will. And I can submit the prompt the one time, and I can see how both models respond to the input. To provide things like the instructions, you'll go to the setup tab, and then you can provide those instructions there, and then come back to the chat. So if this time I want to say, write a poem about flowers, and I sent that one, I can see 4.1 mini is significantly faster than GPT 4.0, and GPT 4.1 mini took 1.6 seconds, and utilize a total of 152 tokens. So that's going to be 27 for the input, 125 for the output. Whereas GPT 4.0 took 3.2 seconds, we have 196 tokens total. So that's 12 for the input, 184 for the output. In addition to that, if you would like to migrate over to code, you can select the code tab here, which then we will generate the code for you. You can select whether you want the completions API or the responses API, your language of either Python, JavaScript, C#, Go, Java, and then there's also curl as a final option. For your SDK, you can either use an OpenAI SDK or REST. And then for your key authentication, you can either use a key or you can do intra ID authentication, which is what I do recommend. So that way you don't have to hard code your keys. You can use I'll show you here. It'll be the default Azure credential that's going to be used. The next thing you can do once you have your code is you can either copy this directly and bring it over into an editor such as Visual Studio Code. Alternatively, if you were to select Open in VS Code for the web, what this will do is actually open up Visual Studio Code directly in the web, and it'll bring the code over for you as well. And so this is what that experience looks like. It'll set up your environment. It'll take roughly, as it estimates, 40 seconds to do so. And once everything has been set up, the code from the previous screen will show here, and you can begin to start working with that model for a code first experience. And this is what that looks like. So I'm going to lower the terminal here a bit as it's downloading the dependencies, but we do have instructions that are available. So that way you can understand how you can actually start to run the file that you've been provided with. That file itself is going to be the run_model file. And because I am using the intra ID authentication versus hard coding, that shows here as well. And then just below, we have the code, not too many lines. And if I happen to want to chat with GitHub Copilot, that's available on the right-hand side. But this web-based experience provides you with the ability to work in the web with the model that you deployed. But of course, alternatively, you can also build with your model locally in Visual Studio Code as well. There's a wealth of things you can do in the Foundry portal with respect to models, whether it's finding models, learning more about models, comparing models, as well as chatting with models.